There's less stress. You can identify voices. Accents are much less of a barrier. When you get into multinational conversations, that's a bonus dollars, because again, with non-native speakers of different languages, you can better understand what somebody's saying, and you can better understand what's being said when you start to throw accents in. And third, the other application that loves HD voice is transcriptions. When you go for things from like voice to email, if you're using computer-based or human-based things to do transcription, HD voice gives you, it's easier process, there's less errors, so HD is a big win there. Applications that should love HD voice is anything to do with processing voice like IVR services and stuff like that. The young and old, if you've ever made a phone call to anybody under the age of 3 and you just hear the squeaky little voice on the other end and you go, let me talk to your mommy, and then, okay, what did she say again? The problem is that narrowband, you can't understand what kids say in narrowband because they have that higher pitched voice. And then, you know, if they're speaking and all their energy's up here and that narrowband's down here, you don't understand what the hell they're saying. And again, if you're older, HD voice adds in that extra information so you can understand what they're saying better. Public security and national defense, there's been an argument that if HD voice is implemented, you get better 911 calling rather than trying to figure out what somebody's saying in a panicked voice, a high-pitched voice. And there's also been some suggestion that if you put in HD, there's better translation and understanding of intercepts. Yes, this is one area where we do want the enemy to have the latest and greatest technology so we can understand them better. Who is doing HD voice? Well, there's a lot of people and a lot of players on the service provider side. You have major telecom carriers, the mobile carriers, cables and MSOs are doing some work, hosted Voip guys, and even smaller consumer plays. And then we'll get into by region. Major telecom carriers for broadband HD voice solutions. In broadband, France Telecom is the loudest guy. They've got 500,000 endpoints turned up as HD voice right now. Verizon's got about 5,000 endpoints internally, and then Verizon Business is going to start supporting HD voice through their Voip Enterprise Exchange service by the end of this year. They're testing it out now. They probably have some guinea pigs in a couple of their favored customers already. BT, the BT Hub service is a G722 service. Does anybody have a BT Hub? No? You know, BT Hub is a HD voice service. It's just the Brits don't know what the hell to call it, so they call it like high definition voice, something weird. But it's not, they don't call it HD voice like everybody else does. Telstra has a hosted HD voice service for businesses down under. In addition to that, Telstra has up to 11,000 endpoints using HD voice internally. They're probably, at one point they were the biggest single carrier using HD voice. That's probably starting to shift a little bit as Verizon and other folks get traction. Global Crossing, as I mentioned before, they're doing some stuff in HD voice for their high-end customers. Now, there are other carriers that have been rumored to do HD voice on the broadband side. Telecom Italia, some of the Nordic telecoms. In addition to that, there's been a rumor that I haven't been able to confirm that AT&T is running HD voice trials down in San Antonio in their home headquarters. But AT&T isn't commenting, and I can't find anybody who's got a phone in their house down there. Can't find a friend down in San Antonio, basically. Mobile cellular for HD voice. What's happening is the positioning is if you're running a 3G plus service or running Volga, voice over LTE, or 4G, these are all going to be drivers for HD voice, higher quality voice services. There's kind of a recognition among the cellular carriers that voice quality among the cellular carriers suck. And you know, France Telecom in their Orange brand has been very aggressive in pushing HD voice. They've already rolled out service in Moldova and Armenia. France is supposed to be done by the end of July. That is now. They've been doing trials in the UK for HD voice, and the rollout is expected later this summer. And in addition to that, FT has also said that they're going to turn up HD voice mobile service in Belgium, Luxembourg, and Spain by the end of this year. And then you could throw in Tunisia on that as well. Why Tunisia? Well, the pattern is that France Telecom spends a lot of money deploying what they call these 3G networks or advanced mobile networks out there. And basically, again, Moldova, Armenia, Tunisia, they're all greenfield builds. There's no legacy equipment in there. France Telecom just rolls out the latest and greatest equipment in there, the most modern switches. Once they turn up all that stuff, all you need to do is have an HD phone, have a mobile handset that supports HD in that network, and you've got HD, basically for the cost of turning up the network. In Tunisia, Orange, France Telecom has invested up to €500 million to build out this 3G plus network. So if you're going to build a network with that expensive, it goes to assume that they're going to stick HD on it. SFR is testing in France now, and they expect I expect to shoot HP shortly. 3UK has demoed HD voice, and then Deutsche Telekom has trialed HD voice on LTE. They did it sometime in the past 2 years. They haven't put their cards on the table yet, but it's pretty sure that when the time comes, probably when there are more mobile handsets in the pipeline, they'll probably turn up HD voice somewhere or another. Cables and MSOs, I hate to quote Battlestar Galactica, well, the Cylons have a plan. Well, Cable has a plan. And Cable's plan is basically, they've issued multiple standards relating to HD voice to implement it. They issued both an IP interconnect standard and the DEC Cat IQ standard, where you can do end-to-end calls between point A and point B for HD voice. In addition to that, Cablevision, kind of like the bleeding edge guys in cable, they've got a hosted HD voice service turned up now. Cox, all they'll say is they're looking at turning up HD voice in 2011. Comcast, their CTO has basically dropped said that as the company moves to HD voice, when they start moving phone calls off the regular phone system, they're going to turn up HD. But then when any follow-ups to Comcast are like, well, we're not going to comment at this time. So they were being real assholes about it. I mean, basically, their CTOs talked about it, but they're not going to put a timetable out there. And then Time Warner Cable has tested HD voice in their labs, and then every time you try to pin them down on a deployment date, they go, well, within 5 years. But they won't. They just won't. They just don't want to put their cards on the table. And for all the cable companies, they want that all of them see money out of the enterprise. They kind of like maxed out residential, or they milk the residential. So they see HD and also just businesses making money off of businesses. So they want to do, so as they deploy SIP trunking and more hosted services for businesses, you're going to see HD roll out as a part of that package. Business Voip providers, there's a lot of independent hosted providers in North America. They've been doing HD voice for a couple of years just to differentiate themselves against the Verizons and the AT&Ts of the world. 8x8, you'll find them in Staples. You can walk into Staples and buy an 8x8 phone and service. They're the biggest guys in North America doing HD right now. They use Astra phones, IP phones. Right now they've got between 130,000 and 140,000 endpoints deployed, by the end of June. There are numerous little guys with anywhere from 2,500 to 7,500 endpoints doing HD around the country. And then there's also been a lot of talk, and I think some of it's just smack talk, among the smaller guys for basically getting together and peering all their IP phone numbers so they can deliver HD voice and other services. There was last fall there was an IP Peering Alliance press release about how a group of bold and brave, independent VoIP providers would all get together, and the one press release came and they haven't done dick. And then this earlier this spring, then there was an announcement from a Cloud Communications Alliance, which seems to be a more formal group of the IP peering people. They've said, well, we're all going to get together and we're going to do all these wonderful things, and then we're going to build this whole huge HD voice, interconnect. And you haven't heard anything out of them since. So digging through a little bit more, half the guys that are in the XConnect trial belong to the IP Peering Alliance, and they've also tried to do some interconnections with BroadSoft. Independent consumer plays, there's a couple people that are doing HD voice in the consumer world. You probably heard the UMA commercials. The UMA second generation Telo hardware both supports G722 as well as the Cat IQ wireless HD voice standard. In the fourth quarter of 2009, UMA shipped 25,000 units. You do the math conservatively, UMA could ship up to 100, could have deployed up to 125,000 units doing HD voice by the end of 2010. But you know, UMA was very, very rah-rah HD voice initially. This year, earlier in the spring, they took a left turn and they started talking about great voice quality, you know, narrowband, and it's just like, guys. Now the guys that did the Ojo phone, WorldGate, they also come out with a second generation video phone, and they've got this 2-year, 300,000 unit deal to ship video phones to ACN, and gee, it supports both you know, video, but it also supports G722. HD voice by region, as noted, Europe led by France Telecom. You're starting to see a lot of movement there. Asia, Australia, not Austria, and Telstra are offering hosted service right now. Korea and Japan are offering HD voice services, but it's hard to tell what once you translate stuff through Google. And then again, in North America, you've got a lot of stuff going on under the radar. And then finally, Africa and South America, if you're talking about greenfield rollouts of 3G, 4G networks, they're going to have good potential to have HD voice just tagging along. Drivers for the HD voice today, I'll flip through this real quick. Service providers like HD because there's an attraction there. France Telecom, their orange services like Experience Emotion, and it also allows them to showcase the latest and greatest technology that they've got. They're also thinking that they've got a better quality product. It keeps people from switching to another service. France Telecom's not charging extra for broadband HD. Now the big question for service providers, well, how do we make money on HD? Nobody knows. There's one possibility is that in a prepaid versus postpaid world, in a prepaid world, you might just get a PS10 quality voice. In a postpaid world, that is where you hand larger checks to the phone company on a regular basis, HD voice might be the quality of service. You know, HD voice is something you might have to pay for and sign up for on a regular contract, but nobody knows. Again, conferencing HD voice is killer app because you get clear information, it's less stressful. Multinational, again, I'll flip to this. Don't care about UC. There are a lot of people in higher ed like to play with cool toys. And so you're starting to see large deployments of HD in places like Penn State and Texas Tech. Who companies in the HD ecosystem? Again, you got people like, yeah, I'm bleeding. You got BT, Cablevision, France Telecom, Verizon Business, 8x8. All the IP desktop handset manufacturers do HD voice today. With mobile handset manufacturers, both Nokia and Sony Ericsson are supporting HD voice on France Telecom's network today. All the other phone manufacturers are in the pipeline to support HD voice. LG is probably one of them. Basically, if you went to France Telecom's website and looked at all the vendors supplying them phones today, they're probably going to be supporting HD voice by the end of 2011 because France Telecom, they want HD in all their phones by the end of 2011. And you know, you got people like Cisco, Dialogic, Ericsson supporting HD at the network core as well. Okay, so how does this all roll out around the world? Macro picture of HD voice today. There's a lot of technology. Technology is out there in abundance. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already out there. And as I noted before, there's a lot of HD islands out there at enterprises and smaller service providers, and soon larger service providers are going to get turned on to HD, like Verizon Business is turning on their service. There's a lot of HD islands out there. So in the near term, IP interconnect is coming. The hurdle is getting past, again, layers 8 and 9, the money and the politics issues. People need to figure out how they're going to make money or how they're going to save money doing HD. Number one. Number two, they need to get past the politics of, well, how do I screw Bob, or, you know, or I can connect to Bob and it's not going to hurt me. They have to get through that mindset. Longer term, you'll hear about super wideband coming along as a codec or CPE upgrade. And the reason why is, well, the question in my mind is, are people going to push for super wideband or not? And the answer is, who the hell knows? We've sat around since 1937 with narrowband voice, and we're just getting around to upgrading to HD. Super wideband may take us another 20 years. May not, because upgrading to super wideband is just a codec and an end user hardware. So you look overseas, mobile HD voice is going to happen faster. The reason why is a typical handset life cycle is about 3 years plus minus. Japan slightly faster. In the U.S., a little bit more. But it's an arms race.